welcome to Saga Thing, where we're putting the sagas of the Icelanders on trial. I'm John.
And I'm Andy, and this is our 8th episode, dedicated to working our way through the summer saga, Njal's saga.
8 episodes. This episode is brought to you by Pythagoreanism, which considered 8 to be the number of geometrical harmony.
Ah, see, that explains the immense feeling of oneness I'm experiencing with creation at this very moment.
I thought I saw a glow about you.
That's right, yeah. Now, I know our 7th episode on Njal was considered a lucky episode, but our luck hasn't run dry just yet now that we're on our 8th episode. Mm-hmm. That's because the number 8 is traditionally considered lucky in Chinese numerology. So I just want to say ni hao to our Chinese listeners. Woman de Sinyun Shuzi Ba.
I don't know whether to be impressed or upset or confused.
I want you to trust your gut, John. I want you to be impressed.
My gut says confused. People complain about our Icelandic pronunciation, and now you're trying Chinese.
Yeah, I tried.
I'm just praying you haven't inadvertently started a third world war.
I'm pretty sure that we're safe.
Okay.
But you might be right. Anyway, are you ready to start?
Almost. I thought I'd mention that 8 is also the 6th number in the Fibonacci sequence.
The 6th number? Are you sure it's not the 7th?
It depends on which version of the sequence you're talking about.
Okay. Well, don't you think you should have specified if you're going to make that point?
Technically, if I say it's the 6th number, I've already identified which version I'm using. So there.
Okay, fair enough. So are you ready now, or do you have another number nonsense thing to get out of your system?
Just one more.
I figured as much.
For you Pratchett fans out there, this episode is twice 4, has a slightly greenish yellow purple color, and should never be listened to by wizards.
Yeah, you lost me there. I'm not sure that was worth it.
That's all right. The Ankh-Morporkians understood me. Okay, now I'm ready.
Okay. All right, good, because our summer saga is quickly shading into autumn now.
Andy, I'm in New England, and we know autumn around here. We're definitely heading into leaf peeping season, and that tells me that we failed to get this entire saga done during the summer months.
Oh, I think we both knew that was always a pipe dream. And besides, we had to take a break from the saga to produce 2 brilliant saga briefs on the conversion of Iceland. A change is as good as a rest, you know.
Uh-huh. Are you familiar with the expression busman's holiday?
No. Probably something from the 1950s, but...
Possibly.
Yeah, okay, but now we are back, and this is going to be an epic episode. But before we get to these earth-shaking events of this section, we need to explain how we got here. It might have been a while for some of you. John, you want to get us started?
All right. Get your finger in your ear and let's go. Last time on Njal's Saga. In the wake of Thrain Sigvuson's death, the Njalssons were caught off guard by Thrain's no-account brother-in-law Lúting, who led an ambush in which Thorkel Njalsson was killed. Eager to give their brother's killer what for, the remaining Njalssons, Skarpheðin, Grim, and Helgi, attacked Lúting's farm. Lúting's brothers were killed, but he escaped and made a financial settlement with Njal that kept him safe from the Njalssons' wrath.
The saga then told the story of Thangbrand and Gutleif, Christian missionaries sent by King Olaf of Norway. The Christians converted several high-profile figures, including Njal Thorgerson himself. But their abrasive attitude and violent dispositions made a poor impression on many in Iceland. By the time the missionaries returned to Norway, Iceland was teetering on the brink of civil war.
A fine kettle of fish. But cooler heads prevailed as both sides agreed to abide the wisdom of Thorger the Law Speaker, who announced that the island must turn to Christianity. Not everyone was happy with the decision, but the new law stuck, and Iceland became Christian, at least in name.
3 years later, the late Thorkel Njalsson's illegitimate son, Amundi the Blind, confronted Lúting, who told him in no uncertain terms where to get off. On his way out of the booth, Amundi's eyes miraculously opened, and using his newfound sight, Amundi immediately buried his axe in Lúting's head, thus fulfilling his filial duty to avenge his lost father.
We're spanning 17 chapters this time out, and our story is really picking up speed as we hurtle toward the climax of the saga.
Yeah, you're working hard to make it sound like we've got some momentum going here. I don't think that's true.
Well, it's important to keep everyone's spirit up.
Oh, I see.
Why don't you go ahead and tell everyone what's in store in this episode?
All right, I will, but I'll be brief. In this episode, Morð Valgardsson returns, and he's up to no good again. In an effort to re-establish his authority in the region, he befriends the Njalssons and fills their ears with lies. Skarpheðin and his brothers clumsily fall into the trap. Suspecting that a beloved friend is plotting against them in secret, they move to attack. And with Morð by their side, each of the Njalssons buries his weapon in the crumpling corpse of a man who loved them above all others. The results are catastrophic. With a major lawsuit pending and public opinion turning against them, the Njalssons attempt to gather support from Iceland's most influential men, including such notable figures as Guðmund the Powerful and his proud enemy Thorkel the Bully, a renowned monster fighter. They also seek counsel from none other than Snorri Goði. Yes, that's Snorri Goði. But will these giants of the Saga age agree to take up the Njalssons' precarious case and risk their own reputations? Will they join forces and save the day? Or is this the beginning of the end for Njal and his family? Find out as Saga Thing takes on Njal Saga, chapters 107 to 123.
Now, as that summary suggests, we're going to be seeing the saga move into a darker register in this episode.
Somewhat. I mean, there's some pretty horrible stuff still to come after this.
Okay, I know, but what I mean is this is the part of the saga where we see the Njalssons behaving in ways that betray their darker side. And to some degree, we have to recognize that they're on their way to becoming, I guess villains is too strong a word, but definitely they're less sympathetic than they've been up to this point.
Well, yes, but one of the things that this author does really well is to force you to consider that there aren't any villains or heroes necessarily in the story. Mm-hmm. They're just people behaving as people do. And sometimes that's not a very pleasant thing. I mean, really, we're back to a version of Theodor Andersen and the idea that the sagas withhold moral judgment.
Yeah, but I'm not sure that's true here. I don't think there's any doubt that what the Njalssons do in these chapters is difficult to justify morally. But we're not required to reject them as protagonists because of their moral failings.
Well, and I would debate whether they're exactly moral failings so much as circumstantial problems. But we're putting the cart before the horse here. I'd really love to dig into the critical discussion first, but we probably should talk a little bit about the saga for a while so that everyone's on the same page.
All right, lead on. Part 31, Death of a Chieftain.
So, we're picking up our story in the aftermath of the conversion. The country's become Christian, or at least sort of Christian.
But that doesn't mean the pagans are out of the saga just yet.
Right, and one of the most notorious pagans in this saga, Morð's father, Valgard the Grey, has been away from Iceland during the conversion years. Now, he's returning to the island, and he's disgusted by what he finds, all these Christians running around. Mm-hmm. Now, even his son, Morð, has accepted baptism, which is really offensive to him.
Yeah, now, and there are a few sharp words exchanged about that.
But it's not really the Christians who are annoying Valgard.
No, as he says to his son, I went to Witness and saw many new booths and great changes. I went also to the place of the Thing Scholar Assembly, and there all our booths are falling apart. What's the reason for this disgrace?
I think that's your best voice yet for a particular character. Now,
I'm glad you like that one.
Yeah, I liked it. Yeah, we talked a couple episodes about Njal and Morð and the kind of power struggle in that region. And as we said, one of the undercurrents in this middle part of the saga is Njal's efforts to maintain his independence against the local chieftains.
Right, and that's a problem because Morð is technically the local Goði for Njal's region. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean he's necessarily Njal's Goði.
Right, as we said before, landowners weren't required to support the nearest chieftain at all.
Right, and all that political tension has been the subtext of our story up to this moment. Suddenly, it ceases to be subtext and becomes just text.
Right.
Njal's machinations in creating a new chieftaincy for Hoskuld Thrainson, who's now known as Hoskuld Witness Goði, have resulted in an exodus of Morð's supporters to Hoskuld.
And Valgard is disgusted with what he calls Morð's unmanly handling of the Goðorth. And he immediately hatches a plan to destroy Njal's family in revenge.
Ooh, it isn't by any chance a cunning plan, is it?
Well, I suppose that depends on your definition of cunning. The plan here is to derive a wedge between Hoskuld Thrainson and the Njalssons by trying to befriend both groups and then whisper lies about each into the other's ear, which is kind of clever.
Right, but that assumes that anyone thinks it's a good idea to listen to anything Morð has to say.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially Hoskuld or the Njalssons. Morð was an enemy of Hoskuld's cousin Gunnar, and Skarpheðin was instrumental in forcing Morð to pay for his part in Gunnar's death. Mm-hmm. Morth's a conniving snake in the grass, and everyone involved here knows it.
Well, and that's why they're definitely suspicious. Now, as it happens, Valgar dies shortly after this conversation he has with Morð, and then Morð invites the Njalssons and Kari to the memorial feast for his father. They attend this feast, but Skarpheðin looks at him and says, "You've never made any effort before."
And yet they buy into this and accept Morth's overtures of friendship. It's a strange thing given their history.
Well, like we said, Morth's technically the local chieftain, or at least one of the options for chieftains. Possibly they see some value in the thawing of relations with Morth's family.
Or they think now that Valgard's dead, Morth's trying a little PR campaign to build up his support now that he's the head of the family.
Could be.
And they might as well enjoy the gifts and flattery that he'll be dishing out. Right? There's no commitment there.
Well, I mean, there's no point in hiding behind the door when gifts are being handed out, right?
Well,
Yeah.
as Marshall said, gifts are hooks, Andy.
Yes.
And gifts from a guy like Morth are undoubtedly dangerous.
Is that why you don't send me any Christmas presents?
No, that's not why. But speaking of Christmas, Valgard remains a pagan to the end of his life, but Morth, evil, scheming Morth, is a Christian now. And he even tried to talk Valgard into converting before his death.
So why are you bringing that up? What's interesting about that?
Well, we talked last time about the conversion and how it does and doesn't change the dynamic of the saga. I find it interesting that Morth slips into being the villain of the story without the author using the pagan-Christian divide to establish the depravity of his character.
Well, I mean, Morth is a sneaky little plotter, and he's pretty bad before the conversion as well. But the treatment of Christianity in this saga is pretty even-handed. I mean, bad men convert as well as good ones, and there's no real moral censure of those whose Christianity feels more social or political rather than religious. So
that's true,
it's okay.
But I think we can begin to look for subtle signs of a changing moral landscape in the second half of the story. Morth may be a Christian, but that just means that he's acquiescing to a new moral order, one in which his behavior is sinful as well as shameful.
Well, pagan or Christian, Morth's not fooling Njal. When his sons returned from Valgar's funeral with gifts from Morð, Njal says that Morth will be looking for a price for those gifts. And see that you don't pay him what he wants, he says.
It's gotta be tough having a father who can see the future.
Yeah. Well, meanwhile, Morth's trying to work on Hoskuld as well. He visits Hoskuld's farm and tries to convince Hoskuld that the Njalssons are out to get him. But even though Morth comes up with a handful of lies implying treachery on the Njalssons' part, but Hoskuld isn't fooled. He says, "For my part, let it be said here and now, that no matter what evil you speak of the Njalssons, I'll never believe it. And if it ever came down to their killing me, or my killing them, why I would much rather suffer death than do them harm. You are, in fact, the worse a man for having spoken these things."
Ouch. Well, I mean, he's not wrong about that last part.
No.
But, I mean, the rest of it is a little on the nose.
It really is, but it's noble.
Yeah. Well, because the Njalssons are proving less resistant to Morth's insinuations than Hoskuld is. He puts all Hoskuld's words and actions in the worst possible light, and over time, the Njalssons and Kari come to believe Morth's lies.
Well, I mean, why would they believe him? They know that he's a liar.
Yeah, they do. Lying is something of a theme in this saga. We've already seen Skalmkel's lies lead to the destruction of his friend Otkel's entire family, and Grim and Helgi Njalsson and Thrain Sigvason all lied to Earl Håkon back in Norway.
And Morth's been lying, or at least dealing dishonestly, all the way through the saga.
Yep.
But that doesn't explain the Njalssons' willingness to trust Morth now. In fact, that ought to make it less likely that they'd believe him. Unless we're just assuming that this is a motif the author's riffing on.
Well, it's definitely a motif. But we should also say that the Njalssons, they have reasons to believe ill of Hoskuld. Or at least they think they do.
Well, there's at least one excellent reason. He's the son of Thrain Sigvason.
Yeah, there is that.
Yeah, I feel like that gets glossed over a bit. The Njalssons killed this guy's father, but they had pretty good reasons for it. And Thrain was partially responsible for the humiliation Grim and Helgi suffered in Norway. Now, remember, he'd been mocking their manhood, and he'd been repeating that old Dungbeardling's insult against them. And now that guy's son is their foster brother?
Yeah, what's Njal thinking?
Well, nobody's perfect. But he had his reasons.
But I'd think any Icelander would recognize the likelihood of a problem bringing the next generation of a feud enemy into your house. And Njal's a renowned lawyer who can see the future. He should know better.
Yeah, that's true, actually, but at the same time, he brought him into the house in order to try to avoid that feud. But as far as seeing the future, I guess that there's a blind spot when it comes to Hoskuld for Njal.
Yeah, no, he really has one. That feud thing is a real problem. A number of people have read it this way. William Ian Miller and Robert Cook especially. Once Hoskuld Njalsson's son Amundi reopened the feud with the Sigfusons by killing Looting, he rekindled the Njalssons' desire for revenge. But the primary target, Looting, is already dead, and so they vent their anger about their brother's death by attacking Looting's nephew, Hoskuld Thrainson.
Who's also the son of their former enemy.
Right, 2 birds, 1 stone.
That would still be a violation of the previous peaceful resolution, although a lot, I guess, would depend on the wording of that agreement.
But even making this a legal issue may be giving the Njalssons too much credit. They may also just be acting out of jealous spite.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You're seeing this all in a much more negative light than I am. I tend to look at them as the victims of Morð's lies more than anything, and I don't make that kind of moral judgment on them.
Right, but given his track record and given his reputation, and given their own interactions with Morð in the past, they should be no more likely to think well of Morð than of Hoskuld.
No, that's absolutely true. At the same time, I don't see that there's any indication in the saga that their relationship with Hoskuld has ever been strained, or that there's any room for that kind of hostility that it develops.
Well, I would say the fact that they're so willing to believe ill of him and then kill him suggests a certain strain, even if it's been below the surface to this point.
Well, I would agree that there's a tension below the surface, but to suggest that there's some kind of overt hostility between them, I think is a little bit misleading.
Well, as I say, I think one of the issues here may be jealousy, right? This is something that comes up in a lot of the scholarship.
Sure, yeah. I mean, we talked a couple episodes ago about how much Njal's doing to try to resolve the rift over Thrain's death. And remember, Njal disrupted the entire legal system of the island a few years back in order to manufacture a Goðorð or chieftaincy for Hoskuld.
And meanwhile, Skarpheðin, Grim, and Helgi have collectively 0 chieftaincies to their names, and Njal hasn't done a thing to help any of them get one.
Well, to be clear, Skarpheðin doesn't deserve one. You don't want him to have one.
It doesn't mean he doesn't think he deserves one.
Well, I don't know. And also, it's worth pointing out that none of these boys want to leave their father's side. They all live at home still. So something's a little strange in the Njalsson household.
See, I'm telling you, these are odd people.
Yeah. I should also mention that Hildegun, the wife Njal finds for Hoskuld, is more socially prominent than the wives he chooses for his own sons.
Yeah. No, you can definitely see how jealousy might become an issue.
Yeah, it's just interesting that the saga, this is kind of how saga literature works, that all this stuff is underlying or potentially underlying the narrative, but it's never ever going to be mentioned. It just erupts into action.
Right.
Here it comes. Here's Morð whispering lies in their ears. But those lies speak to, I guess, if I'm understanding what you're suggesting here, the bitterness and envy of the Njalssons against Hoskuld, who's kind of stepped over them. The Njalssons, I guess, if that's true, they're understandably willing to listen to these lies.
Yeah. That's how I read it. Meanwhile, word is getting around the district that the Njalssons are angry at Hoskuld. And when Hoskuld's wife Hildegun tells her uncle Flosi about the situation, he tries to convince Hoskuld to move away from the area. But Hoskuld refuses to leave.
Well, he doesn't want to be thought a coward.
No, of course not. But at the same time, he doesn't want any trouble if he is attacked. I would rather die without compensation than that many others were harmed for my sake.
Ah, this guy. He's too good to be true, isn't he?
Not to mention that the author is laying on the foreshadowing a little thick at this point.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true. Throughout this section of the saga, I think it's all over the place. There's a lot of ominous clouds on the horizon throughout the next probably 20 chapters or so.
Yeah, now it provides a sense of tragic inevitability to events, and you can see how each decision is reasonable in its own right, but every one is bringing the story closer to the cataclysm.
Yeah. And
slowly, with each decision, I see that we're seeing the Njalssons turning from sympathetic figures into something more complicated.
So the inevitability here is that for whatever reason, the Njalssons are predisposed to believe any slander against Hoskuld, and eventually Morð works them up to the point that they're actually ready to attack.
Right. Now, Njal knows nothing about this, right?
Yeah, I think they rightly suspect that Njal would talk them out of it, so they keep him out of the loop. And when Bergthor asks why their sons are talking with Morð all the time, Njal says, I'm not in on their planning, but I was never left out when their plans were good.
Well, at least Njal knows that Morð is trouble.
Oh, yeah. Well, everyone knows that he's trouble.
Everyone else,
but
his sons, and even Kari, are under Morth's influence now, and they all agree to go off and attack Hoskuld.
And that's exactly what they do. Hoskuld's alone in his field sowing seeds when the Njalssons, Kari, and Morð all attack him. Skarpheðin shouts, "Don't bother taking to your heels, Fitanes Goði," and he strikes a blow with his axe at Hoskuld's head. As the others close in on him, Hoskuld whispers, "May God help me and forgive you." And then he's hacked to death.
Right, dying like Thomas a Becket.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
It feels so deliberate as an authorial moment. I mean, not Thomas a Becket specifically, but the Christian character, right? I think the Christianity of the island is really in focus here. And again, it puts the Njalssons on the side of those against the faith.
It does.
Or at least against a good Christian man.
Men like that should burn, I say.
Wow.
That's foreshadowing. I guess, honestly, if I'm looking at it this way, I'm not surprised by Grimm. I expect that kind of thing.
Well, I mean, he's always following someone around.
Yeah.
Right?
But Skarpheðin's supposed to be clever. He's independent, but he's clever. And Helgi, we know from earlier chapters, has some kind of foresight. And Kari, well, I love Kari. I expect better of Kari. Disappointing Njalssons. Very disappointing. Bad form.
Yeah, it's that Othello moment, right? I mean, the tragedy here is that they allow themselves to believe a dishonest man because they already believe what he's saying.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Or at least that they want to, right?
It depends on whether you think they're ultimately motivated by insecurity or jealousy.
Yeah, either way, Morð's not done messing with their heads just yet. While the group of them is still standing over the corpse, Morð suggests another plan.
Another one?
Yeah.
How does this guy keep them all straight?
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I keep all my nefarious plans in a little black book in my back pocket.
That explains a lot, actually.
Yeah, I lost it in the bathroom the other day. Took me forever to find it. Very embarrassing.
Couldn't go through with any of my plans.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, well, Morð's plan is that he will pretend to have nothing to do with the killing, which is really brilliant. And he's actually going to be the one to give notice of the suit for it. I mean, that way he can...
Wait. That way he can royally screw over the Njalssons if he wants to and keep himself free of all suspicion.
Well, sure, but that's not what he's doing, really, or at least not directly. He's planning to foul things up to ruin the case against them.
Yeah, but of course, as we know, Morð's long-term plan is to build resentment against the Njalssons for this killing and get them killed in retaliation.
Right. I mean, screwing up the case is a way of frustrating everyone in the region and fomenting that anger against Njal's family. He's already pulled them into a nasty scheme, and now he's going to make it so justice can't be served.
Yep. Morð is a real scumbag, but you have to give him credit for scheming.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, compared to someone like Thorger Buttering and Rekdala Saga,
yes.
or Narfi and Cormac, Morð's a master of the craft.
Yeah, there's a definite evil genius quality to him.
Oh, and speaking of evil genius, this is where we're starting to see the strands of this story coming together. Remember, and this is going back now quite a ways in the saga, remember that Morð is the son of Valgard the Grey and Un, the daughter of Morð Fiddle.
Yeah, I remember that.
Quiet, smart guy. Un was only able to marry Valgard because of the dowry she got back from her first husband, Hrut. And she only got that money back with the help of her cousin Gunnar Hamunderson and Gunnar's good friend, Njal Thorgerson.
So in essence, Gunnar and Njal created the circumstances that allowed Morð to be born.
And now Morð's already destroyed Gunnar, and he's coming after Njal's family now.
Oh, what a tangled web.
He's an implacable force of destruction that they created. He's essentially Nemesis.
He is. Yeah, that reading actually makes a lot of sense. But for now, let's get back to watching him work. Let's see what he does.
Okay, so he manages to arrange that he's the one who announces the case against the Njalssons and convinces the Sigfusons and their allies to let him deal with the action for the slaying. After all, why wouldn't you trust a man like Morð?
Yeah, because he's awful.
Well, yeah.
But while Morð's busy manipulating everyone in the region, Hoskuld's wife, Hildegun, is told of her husband's death. She retrieves the body, but carefully wipes up Hoskuld's blood with his cloak, and then folds it and puts it carefully away in a chest.
Right. No, that's ominous. It's another Thomas a Becket moment, by the way.
Yes, it is. What's even more ominous is Njal's reaction when his sons tell him what they've done. It's fair to say that I would rather have lost 2 sons as long as Hoskuld was still alive.
Yeah. And Skarpheðin says, "You can be excused for saying that since you're old, and it's to be expected this would touch you deeply."
It's not my old age. It's the fact that I know more clearly than you what will follow.
And what will follow?
My death. The death of my wife. And the death of all my sons.
Right. So that's it. From this point forward, Njal is laboring under the belief that he and his entire family are fated to die. That's going to make things more difficult going forward, and it also means that we now have to wonder whether, from this point, Njal is working to avoid fate or to bring it on.
Yeah, that doesn't mean that the Njalssons are taking his prophecy lying down. They're going to be looking for all the help they can get, which means that we're heading toward a showdown, and both sides are working to build support.
Right. Part 32, Hoskild's Cloak. So this next part of the saga is largely concerned with setting up the two sides in the lawsuit over Hoskuld Thrainsson's death. On the one hand, we've got the Njalssons and their allies, and on the other, the family and friends of Hoskuld and his wife, Hildegun Starkathsdottir.
Yeah, the Njalssons are going to be organizing their own support, but Hoskuld's case is going to be pursued by Hildegun's uncle, Flosi Thorisson.
Right. Now, the author is going to be moving back and forth between the two groups as they build their coalitions of support. It's an effective literary technique to heighten the tension. Unfortunately, it's kind of hard to follow in audio form. So I think it's best to rearrange the order of events in the saga a little to make things more straightforward.
Yeah, I think we have to. This is a barrage of names, and trying to keep it all straight will be confusing enough as it is.
Right. So those of you who are reading along or who read in preparation for this, if it seems like things are a little bit out of order, that's why. So let's look at Flosi's group first. Flosi moves quickly, and he sends word out to several leading men to ask for support in the lawsuit against the Njalssons.
Yeah, but Morð has already started a case against the Njalssons.
Yeah, and Flosi knows about that. But he's not sure he can trust Morð, understandably, and so he starts a parallel project of building his own support base.
Smart man.
Yes, he is. As we're going to see, Flosi's a formidable guy, and not least because he's smart. He's usually in control of himself, and unlike many of the other figures in the saga at this point, he keeps his own counsel.
Yeah, and that's pretty much the definition of an admirable figure in the sagas.
Right.
So that's already a bad sign for the Njalssons. I mean, not just that they've got a man like this against them, but that they've earned the enmity of someone like Flosi. As we were saying earlier, the Njalssons are in the wrong now, and their enemies are going to, and actually their friends too, are going to start including some good men as well as miserable jerks like Morð.
Absolutely. Flosi's a man with connections to other important men as well. For example, his first messenger is sent to Hall of Sitha and Hall's son Jot.
Yeah, this is the same Hall who led the Christian faction at the Althing in 1000.
Yeah, Flosi is married to Hall's daughter Steinvor, and so Hall and Jot are guaranteed to come to his aid.
Now, Ljot Halsson is worth keeping an eye on. He's one of the most promising men in Iceland, and there's a prophecy that once he's attended 3 Althings and returned home safely, he'll be destined to be one of the greatest and longest-lived chieftains ever. And this is already going to be his second trip to the Althing.
Oh, nice for him.
Yeah.
But this isn't all Flosi does. His first attempt earns him a minor army of support. He builds a coalition of men from near and far, and it's an impressive list. Cole Thorsteinsson, Glum Hlithason, Girleif, the son of Onan Boxback, Maldolf Ketilsson, Surt Asbjarnarson of Kirkjubjar, Kolbein Ailson, Thorgrim Showboat, Lothmund Ulfson, Half the Wise, Hall of Sitha, and Runolf, the son of Ulf Allgothi.
Now, I know that you didn't really need to go through that entire list, but you just wanted to sneak in a lot of nicknames, right?
Yeah.
Onund Boxback, Thorgrim Showboat.
I know. I'm itching to get to the study of names in this saga. But even so, this is a crazy list. I mean, we're firmly in 80s movie montage territory here. Or maybe 7 Samurai.
Yeah, that sounds
Flosi's building a dream team to join his side.
And the Njalssons are doing the same. Can we have a double montage on both sides?
The author is sure trying. And we know, or at least we can strongly suspect, that this is going to end in blood. So there are major consequences here to having the bigger, better, stronger team on your side.
And maybe the more respectable ones as well. Men like Hall of Sitha are generally pretty well regarded.
Right, now for anyone who's forgotten, Hall of Sitha was an important early convert to Christianity. So that's a good get for Flosi.
Yeah, and Flosi's not done yet. He also meets and allies with the Sigfusons, who are united in calling for a violent attack on the Njalssons.
Which is not surprising, really. I mean, there may once have been an alliance between those families, but that was before Skarpheðin Njalsson killed the oldest Sigfuson brother, Thrain. And then, of course, all the Njalssons killed Hoskuld, Thrain's son.
Yeah, you can see why there'd be a little resentment by this point.
Yeah, no, it's more than a little. Even Kettle of Mork, who we've been saying up till now is torn between the families. Remember, he's married to Njal's daughter Thorgerd. He's a brother-in-law of the Njalssons.
Right.
Even Kettle is now openly siding with his brothers against the Njalssons.
Okay, but Kettle is still trying to keep things under control. He tells Flosi, I would prefer to have a peaceful settlement between us.
Sure, but he then goes on to say, I've sworn not to quit until it's settled one way or the other, and I'll stake my life on this. So yeah, he may not be howling for Njalsson blood like his brothers, but he's committed to spilling it if necessary. And that means that Flosi now has all 6 living Sigfusons, all their sons, and their nephew Grani Gunnarsson all supporting him as well.
It might be easier to name everyone in the region who's not on Flosi's side, actually.
Yeah. It's almost overkill, or it would be if the Njalssons weren't such an impressive group in their own right. But right now, it starts to look like Flosi's got quantity and quality on his side.
Absolutely. I mean, it's less important to remember all the names we've thrown out than just to appreciate how large a following Flosi's able to command. Some of them are his personal friends and relatives, like his in-laws or Kolbein Eilson, who's Flosi's nephew. But others are just decent men who are appalled by the Njalssons' killing of such a good man like Hoskuld.
And many of the group are actively pushing for violent revenge. Grani Gunnarsson, son of Njal's old friend Gunnar, tells Flosi, I would never make a full peace with the Njalssons, and I want to be there when they're all killed.
Okay, well, that's not terribly surprising because that's exactly how Grani Gunnarsson behaves.
Yes.
So it's not exactly a shock that he would say something like that.
No. Yeah, there's always one guy shouting for blood, and he's usually the punk of the group.
Yeah, Grani's definitely that. For a son of peace-loving Gunnar Hamundarsson, he's got a nasty mouth on him. Of course, he's also the son of Hallgarth Longlegs, so that's probably not entirely surprising.
Right. He's also got more mouth than courage. As Flosi says, you and many others are asking for something which as time goes by you would pay much money not to have taken part in. Flosi at least knows that an open war with the Njalssons would come at a heavy price.
So Flosi's hoping for a legal solution to the killing, but his supporters are mostly people who want blood vengeance against the Njalssons. And again, remember, the Njalssons, and through their father Njal, have been throwing their weight around in the region quite a bit. So we're in an awkward situation in the region.
Yeah, it is. But only some of Flosi's supporters are personally involved in the feud. Some of them are third-party figures who might be motivated by the desire to take Njal's family down a few social pegs, which you're suggesting. You mentioned a couple episodes back that Njal's desire for political independence was starting to become an issue, and I think we're starting to see the blowback from that now.
In fact, not everyone Flosi approaches is even willing to join the posse. Flosi approaches Ingjöld of Keldir, for example, who's married to another of Flosi's nieces. But Ingjöld says, I'm in a difficult position here because of my connection to Njal and his sons, and other large matters that stand in the way. John, what's the story here? What's going on?
Well, Ingjöld's another guy in an awkward spot because of his links to both clans in this feud. He's married to Flosi's niece, Thraslag Eilsdottir, but he's also the brother of Hrodni Hoskuld's daughter, the mother of Njal's illegitimate son, Hoskuld Njalsson.
I hope everyone's keeping track of all this. You know you're supposed to listen with a pen and paper, right? Probably a pencil because you need to do erasing.
Right. The short version there is that he is the uncle of Njal's illegitimate son.
Yeah, who was killed by the Sigfuson's brother-in-law, Looting.
Yep. That's probably the other large matter Ingjöld refers to. He may be obligated to support Flosi, but he's not happy about siding against his nephew's family alongside the family of the guy who killed him.
Which makes a lot of sense. And there's a lot of these complications going on here. It's one of the things that makes this saga so remarkable. It's a very, very complex saga. But you get to see how the political and legal factions and social tensions all kind of come together. At this point in the saga, almost everyone has some connection to one or both sides of the developing feud. And so each man has to weigh his loyalties and figure out where he stands. It's brilliant.
Right. Yeah, Ingjöld's another one of those figures whose story is kind of being told in the margins of this saga.
Yeah, and he's been present at events like Gunnar's wedding to Hallgarth, but he's been a background figure. And now he's moving into the foreground. But it's not clear which way his allegiance will turn at this point.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up, the wedding. We talk about the ways this author plays a long game with his foreshadowing, and there's a cool kind of Easter egg at Gunnar's wedding all those years ago. They were all sitting around.
Yes, all those years and episodes ago. I think it's worth mentioning.
That's right. So when the guests sat down at the table for the wedding feast, they were arranged on the sides they'd eventually take in the feud that's breaking out now, 2 generations later. The Sigfusons, Morð, Valgard, Runolf, and Ulf Argoði were all on one side of the table, and the Njals and the Njalssons and all their future allies were on the other side. Right? There's no hint at that time that this is foreshadowing, and there's no way to catch it on a first reading. But it really jumps out at you on a second reading.
Yeah, that's such a cool detail. Now, of course, I have to ask, which side was Ingjald sitting on?
That's a good question. Yeah, he was sitting with Njal's family. But as of right now, he's still trying to decide which side to back in the fight.
Sure, and what makes this section of the saga so compelling is partly the jumbled motives of the people involved. We've got good men, bad men, opportunists, and idealists all choosing sides. It's not always a simple matter to decide who has the greater claim on your loyalty, and the resulting factions are both going to have some great men and some sketchier figures among them.
Right, so there's no real way of deciding what's objectively the right course of action here. Just sides to choose from.
Well, maybe not quite that. I mean, it's pretty clear that both legally and morally speaking, the Njalssons are on the defensive, and I think that's right. But they're going to have some good men on their side as well, and Flósi's coalition is going to make some deals with the devil while trying to force the Njalssons to account for what they've done.
Yeah, and speaking of dealing with the devil, Flósi also has to figure out how to handle Morð Valgardsson, who, remember, has already started a proceeding against the Njalssons with the blessing of Höskild's family, the Sigfusons.
Even though he was one of the men who killed Höskild.
Yeah, but nobody else knows that. So Flósi consults his ally Runolf, who's Morð's first cousin. Their fathers, Ulf Argoði and Valgard the Grey, are brothers. So he asks Runolf what's happened with the case so far.
The panel of neighbors has been summoned, and notice of the slaying has been given.
Who gave the notice?
Morð Valgardsson.
Can he be trusted?
Well, he is my kinsman, but I must say in truth that more evil than good comes from him.
See, that's an interesting conversation to me.
Yeah.
We know that Flósi already knows all that. So what's he doing? Is Flósi testing Runolf, or is he really unsure whether Morð is trustworthy?
Well, Flósi and Runolf are friends, so it seems more likely he's looking for information about Morð before he has to deal with him one-on-one. And as his cousin, Runolf's the most likely one to know something useful about this.
Yeah, and Runolf's not pulling punches here. More evil than good comes from him is pretty strong mead. Meanwhile, other men in Flósi's camp are also criticizing Morð in more general terms. And now that Flósi knows that, he needs to talk to Hildegun, who's his niece and Höskild's widow.
And that's an awkward meeting.
Well, yeah. Flósi's making no secret of his preference to seek peaceful resolution if possible, and Hildegun wants Höskild paid for in blood.
And she's not the sort to let Flósi run things.
No.
We were already told that she's a strong-willed woman, and she shows it here. She arranges great compliments to Flósi during his visit, including setting up the high seat of the house for him, which is really reserved for royal guests or people of high import. It kind of puts Flósi off to be sitting there. But she also, once he's sitting there, weeps in his face and presses him to seek blood vengeance.
Right, now Flósi knows what she's up to, but he just admonishes her for making fun of him by offering him a high seat. And when she cries, he says, "It's right that you should weep for a good man."
He misses the whole point, doesn't he?
Well, no, he's pretty clearly trying to get out of there without making a commitment.
Yeah, but Hildegun is a determined widow. And when Flósi seems hesitant, she reminds him that his brothers once killed a man in revenge for their father. And when that doesn't seem to move him, she brings in Höskild's cloak, the same cloak that Flósi gave him a few chapters ago, and for us, I think an episode or two ago. It's caked in dried gore from when she used it to sop up his blood. And then she puts it on his shoulders, and it shakes out all that dry blood. It rains down and covers him.
This is the worst after-dinner game ever.
Or, it's a metaphor. But it gets a lot worse. She then shouts in his face, "In the name of God and all good men, I charge you. by all the powers of Christ, and by your courage and manliness, to avenge Hoskuld's wounds, or else be an object of contempt to all men.
See, you definitely get the sense that some Christian stuff got lost in translation during Iceland's conversion.
What? Yeah, like, what would Jesus do? He would kick some ass, is what he would do.
He'd murder all his enemies.
Yeah. Well, this certainly reads as if the cultural precepts of revenge and honor are still operating, to say the least. I mean,
well, and this is another example of manliness being a potential vulnerability, right? Or at least the social dimension of manliness. Flosie's angry at Hildegunn for forcing him into a tight corner here. In fact, he calls her the worst monster and uses an old chestnut. Cold are the counsels of women. And that sort of backs her off a little bit.
But it does work. Hildegunn gets her way. He's helpless in the face of this demand.
Oh, absolutely he is. But he's also overcome by emotion, and his face turns red, then pale, and then black.
That's a strong reaction, but understandable given that he's covered in his friend's blood, wearing the gift cloak that he gave him. And I think that's obviously the point. Generally, men in the sagas are embarrassed when they betray their emotions in this way. And sure enough, with his emotions visible now, Flosi storms out of the house. But he's committed now, even to violence if necessary.
Right. And by the way, that sequence of red and pale and black as a shocked and emotional response is something we've actually seen before.
It is. Wait, red, black. It's just something from Ragnar Saga, right?
Yeah, it is. Your favorite cow wrestler, Ivar the Boneless, turned those same colors when he learned the details of his father's death.
I love it. Wow. So this is a trope in the literature, the red, black.
Yeah. The indication is that Flosie's barely containing himself. At the moment, his anger is directed at Hildegunn, but partly because he feels the force of what she's saying. He may think she's leading him to ruin, but her demands really just echo the cultural pressure Flosi would already be feeling.
Yes.
He's supposed to want to kill in retaliation for violence done to his family. Right? This is just normal.
So essentially, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
We're seeing in Flosi another version of the same kind of hesitation we saw in Gunnar.
Exactly. That's exactly where I was heading with that.
See, I saved you the time.
Silence. This is one of the saga's themes. The difficulty of walking a righteous path in a culture that pressures men to act violently. Or at least to appear to want violence. Right? The law is written the way it is in response to a cultural assumption that violence will beget violence.
Which puts terrible pressure on those men who would prefer to seek nonviolent redress.
Especially when those men have become Christian.
Yeah, well, especially for a Christian audience contending with this kind of transitional moment, even in the 14th century, or even in the 13th century and into the 14th century.
Absolutely. Right? And this is why Hildegunn's invocation of Christ to reinforce that cultural pressure toward violence is so interesting.
It is, but we do have a feud to be getting on with.
Fair enough.
So, if I may, Flosi leaves Hildegunn's farm with a new determination to drive a hard bargain with the Njalssons, and possibly to force them into a violent reckoning.
Right, now that's going to please the hotheads among his supporters, and there are a lot of them.
Yeah, but it's also easier said than done. It's not like they're going up against a group of nobodies. In fact, I think it's high time that we looked at the Njalssons' efforts to build a team of supporters.
Part 33, Skarpheðin's Grin.
Part 33, huh?
Yeah.
So the Njalssons have their work cut out, don't they?
Yeah.
It seems like Flosi's gathering up every single important family in the area to support his cause.
Yeah, well, not quite everyone. The Njalssons' first call is on Asgrim Alida Grimson, who promises his support.
Well, I mean, Asgrim's an old friend of the family, so that's not terribly surprising. His daughter Thorhalla is married to Helgi Njalsson, and his son Thorhall is Njal's foster son. He's a trusted friend, which is just what the Njalssons need right now.
So all that weaving together of families Njal did while arranging his kids' marriages, it's starting to bear fruit.
Well, that's why you weave those marriages. But even Asgrim says that this is going to be a very difficult situation because the slaying is spoken badly of all over the land. I don't know why I talk like that. Over the land!
You're back into the Bane voice.
Yeah. I don't understand.
Everyone speaks badly of this slaying. Yeah, it doesn't sound promising.
Yeah, it could be worse, I suppose.
Not by much. It's dangerous to throw your lot in with men who are likely to become outlaws.
Oh, absolutely it is.
The support of a man like Asgrim is invaluable, but the brothers don't have a lot of other friends.
this actually isn't new for them, right? I mean, it's not like they've had a ton of allies before this point in the story. They tend to work alone.
No, that's fair. We mentioned a couple episodes back that the Njalssons often act alone.
Yeah.
And later, they have at least Kari Solmundarson as their only backup, but that's it. They're unusually isolated socially, and now that they need friends, they're finding that their habit of going it alone has consequences.
Poor lonely Njalssons.
Well, not exactly.
Forever alone.
But for a literature that emphasizes again and again how admirable it is to be quiet, strong-willed, and self-sufficient, it's in moments like this that spotlights just how much a well-tended social network matters to a saga figure.
Yeah. Yeah, you remember my Thingman Bjorn the Hítardal champion. He had a similar problem. As he became more and more socially isolated because of his strength, the local community turned against him.
Okay, you got a little bit of bias showing there. Bjorn became socially isolated because he kept killing his neighbors' sons.
That is slander. That is vile slander, in fact. It's true, but it's not nice to say, and there are circumstances that are worth considering there.
Yeah, I'm sure you think so.
He has good reasons.
Yeah, I'm sure you think so.
Look, listen, we've been over all of that before, and I'm confident that the people agree with me on this one.
Yeah, you tell yourself that.
I do, every night as I go to sleep.
I believe that. Returning to the Njalssons, they're not totally isolated. They do have Asgrim, and Asgrim's got some good connections that he can try to exploit. But he tells the brothers that they'll need to go to the Althing early to meet with the heavy hitters.
Yes, he name drops two chieftains, Guðmund the Powerful and some guy named Snorri Goði.
Snorri Goði, you say?
Well, he thinks that these two powerful figures, or at least a powerful figure and Snorri Goði, will help them. See, I've changed.
Wow, those are sour grapes.
I've really turned.
Those are bitter apples.
Even years later. Yeah, well, there's a list of others as well. But again, Asgrim wants to get them to the Althing so that they can make the rounds and try to build their coalition as fast and as strongly as possible.
Right, we should be clear that things aren't totally helpless. Njal is going with them, as is Asgrim's son Thorhall, who is still Njal's foster son and has learned a great deal of law from him.
Yeah, and Thorhall isn't the most reassuring ally, though.
Yeah.
When the Njalssons laugh at him for not being dressed as well as the others. So Thorhall responds, well, I will have thrown these clothes away by the time I've taken action for the death of my foster father, Njal.
So Thorhall's just a simple country lawyer? Is that what's going on?
Just a simple country lawyer trying to do good in this world.
Yeah, but as a statement, that's something of a conversation stopper. The way to kill
Not
the
when
mood,
delivered
Thorhall.
that way.
Right. Everyone's just charmed by his southern hospitality.
That's right. Well, I will throw these clothes away. Is this the first actual prediction we've had about Njal's death?
Sort of. We did have a reference to it once before. This is back when Gunnar asked whether Njal could foresee what would cause his own death. And Njal said, yes, something that people would least expect.
Yeah.
It's not a prediction really, but it suggests that Njal knows something about it.
Yeah, well, and we also just said recently that, he said to Skarpheðin, we're all going to die.
Right, we're all fated, right.
But outside of Njal himself saying something, this is the first time we hear other people mentioning it. Yeah. Oh, and one more thing. On the way to the Althing, they stop at a farm of Njal's nephews. I don't think we've mentioned them before, but Njal does have nephews.
Yes, he does. Njal has a half-brother named Holtathorir, who has two sons, Thorleif Crow and Thorgrim the Tall. They're committed to Uncle Njal, and they're troublesome cousins.
Yes, so altogether the Njalssons have about 30 men with them when they reach the Althing.
Right. It's not too shabby.
But not enough. And they also lack big names that would carry weight at the Althing. These are all just guys that are close by and related.
Well, they've got one. I mean, they've got Asgrim, but they've got one more. Among the 30 men is Hjalti Skeggisson, who they pick up along the way.
Oh, this is the same Hjalti that we talked about during the conversion episode, right?
Right, the Freya's dog guy.
A dog? I don't think he said dog, but that's the one we're talking about, yeah.
Now, he should be a big help.
Yeah. And to be honest, he's not even all that enthusiastic about helping them. At one point, he tries to ride off, but Asgrim grabs him and won't let him escape.
Right. Truly, Hjalti's a prince among men.
Mm-hmm. But he is valuable for information, if nothing else. He actually knows what Flossy's up to. And so Njal learns just how many men Flossy's got, and more importantly, he learns who they are.
Right, which, of course, just means that Njal knows exactly how outmatched they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they need more support. And so they sweep the All Thing looking for new friends. It's a really dynamic sequence that's about to happen.
Yeah, this is iconic. 8 of them walk in single file from one booth to the next, like a really sort of heavily armed version of the Abbey Road cover.
Right.
Asgrim Alita Grimson is first, followed by Helgi Njalsson, then Kari, then Grim Njalsson, then Skarpheðin Njalsson, then Thorhall, and then the nephews, Thorgrim the Tall and Thorleif Crow.
Mm-hmm. So where's Hjalti? I mean, for that matter, where's Njal in this group?
Well, I mean, Njal's an old man, and they're trying to exhibit a show of strength here. And Hjalti's acting a little squirrely, so it's not surprising they decide not to include him.
Okay. So we've got a lot of booths to visit. Where do you want to start?
Well, I think we're going to have to compress this part a little bit. The very short version is that they visit the booths of 6 influential men. Gizur the White, who we've seen before, Skafti Lawspeaker, who we've seen before, Snorri Goði, Hoff the Wealthy, Guðmund the Powerful, and Thorkel Bully.
That's quite a lineup, and 2 of them are your Thingmen, is that right?
That's correct.
Maybe I'll get some of those boys on my team.
You can have Thorkel Bully.
I would take Thorkel Bully, and we'll see why shortly.
Right. No, so we've seen most of these guys before. Obviously, Snorri was a major figure in Eyrbyggja's saga. Skafti Lawspeaker appeared in several of the sagas that we've done already.
Just briefly, very briefly.
No. Gizur the White has been present throughout Njal's saga. Guðmund the Powerful features in several sagas. And even Thorkel the Bully actually showed up before, in Rekdala's saga.
Did he really?
Yeah, he was a supporter of an obnoxious man named Eystein.
I do not remember that at all.
Yep.
Did we talk about that?
Yes, we did.
Time flies, John.
It was the saga we did before this one, by the way.
Last year. And so in this saga, each of these guys offers support from a region of the island. So they represent the major figures of all of Iceland.
Right. Now, we're at the point in this saga where all Iceland is being drawn into the feud.
Yes.
But not all of these men are interested in helping the Njalssons. Remember, they're not necessarily popular, and they've done a pretty horrific thing in killing Hoskuld.
Mm-hmm. And don't forget the Skarpheðin problem.
Oh, I hadn't forgotten. Mm-hmm. We've seen hints throughout the saga of Skarpheðin's bitter, mocking humor, especially his famous crooked smile. So, Andy, why is he so cynical?
Why is he so cynical? Well, a couple of scholars talk about the way Skarpheðin's grin seems almost to hover over the story, especially at this point. My favorite is Lausun I calling him a malevolent Cheshire cat amid a sea of poker faces. That's a great turn of phrase.
Yeah, there aren't a lot of opportunities to drop Lewis Carroll references in the Saga podcast.
No, well, I couldn't miss this chance.
Now, I tend to think of his grin as evidence of his sort of bitter appreciation of the absurdities of life. Mm-hmm. Call it fate if you want, since this is a saga. But Skarpheðin shows himself to be kind of wryly resigned to the world's insanity and whatever it brings his way. As the saga goes on, he seems increasingly to inhabit that bitterness and wryness.
That actually reminds me of you.
What? I am a ray of sunshine in a degraded world. How dare you?
You're my ray of sunshine, John. No, I see what you mean, though. It's like it warps him.
Yeah, exactly. And now, as fate seems to be preparing to destroy his entire family, Skarpheðin's face is almost terrifying. Right? For a culture that really held that a man could be fated, Skarpheðin's grin is a rictus of ironic despair, and he must look like a man forsaken by the gods.
You know, when I woke up this morning, I'd never imagined I would hear the phrase rictus of ironic despair.
What?
No, there's nothing wrong with it. I just say I didn't think I would hear that. Now I've heard it.
I love the word rictus. I don't get to use it often enough.
All right, let's visit some booths.
All right. The first to visit is Gizur the White, who, remember, was a foe of Njal years ago because his relative Otkil's feud with Gunnar caused them to meet under unfortunate circumstances. But that's all water under the bridge now, and Gizur agrees to support the Njalssons in their case.
Well, I mean, it's a little more complicated than that, I think. Mm-hmm. Gizur may or may not still resent Njal, but he's not really being asked for help by the Njalssons. He's being asked by Asgrim, which is important.
And that matters because?
It matters because Asgrim has a claim on Gizur as a kinsman. Mm-hmm. So, again, family relationships come into play here.
Right.
Gizur's sister Jorunn is Asgrim's mother.
Well, that makes sense. A man's relationship to his maternal uncles was vitally important within a family. And that also means that Njal is foster father to Gizur's great-nephew Thorhall. and the Njalssons are Thorhall's foster brothers. So of course he'll help them. Okay, great. So the Njalssons are 1 for 1.
Well, they aren't all going to be that easy, though.
No.
No, so let's move forward. Yeah, so the next booth they visit is the Olfus group to speak with Skafti Thoroddsson or Skafti the Law Speaker.
Oh, can we just skip this part?
No, I think this is important. I mean, this is your Thingman, and what a prize he's turning out to be, John.
Look, hang on. Let's explain what happens in the scene first, then I'll talk Thingman.
Okay. Allow me.
Uh-huh.
The Njalssons committee leader, Asgrim, I've been waiting for this for so long.
Yeah, I know you have.
Asgrim asks for Skafti's help, and Skafti responds, "I'd hoped for something else. To keep your troubles out of my house."
Uh-huh. I don't much care for the voice you're using there. The man's a law speaker. He was chosen for his booming and wide-reaching voice.
Listen, I can't help what he sounds like. That's historically accurate as far as I know. Skafti then asks who the fifth man in line is.
Mm-hmm.
He says, "The big man with the pale and luckless look about him, though fierce and troll-like."
Yeah, that's just what we were talking about. I'm ignoring your voice at this point.
Historically accurate.
But this is what we were talking about. Skarpheðin looks like a man struggling under a terrible fate.
And the men that they're asking for help are noticing it. And we know how luck plays a role in the sagas and the kind of decisions people make. And once they see that this guy's marked with an ill luck, they want nothing to do with it.
That's right. Pale, luckless, and troll-like is no way to go through life, Skarpheðin.
No. And Skarpheðin replies, "You know who I am, but I've no need to ask who you are. You're Skafti Thoroddsson, though you called yourself Brushhead after you killed Ketil of Elda when you shaved your head and smeared tar on it.
Oh.
Later you went to Thorolf Loftsson at Eiriar, and he smuggled you abroad in some flour sacks." Now, John, I have to say that's pretty shameful behavior.
In the interest of keeping our story moving, I'm going to resist. I'm going to resist the urge to really launch into an explanation of why this is nonsense. I'll just remind you that even Robert Cook notes in his translation that this treatment of Skafti is bizarre, and that there's no evidence anywhere else in the sagas of any of these stories being true.
Lost manuscripts.
No one else in the saga even independently verifies Skarpheðin's story.
Well, I would say that it fits into the broader cynicism about the law that this saga starts to show in these latter sections. I would also add that we've seen before criticisms of Skafti law speakers' character.
In this saga.
Let's
Always
move on.
in this saga. This author has a bug up his butt about Skafti.
Let's move on. And we just want to leave a lasting impression here that Skafti's lame. So who are they going to visit next? Oh, look, it's Snorri Goði, John. Another one of your Thingmen.
Yeah, don't get too smug. First of all, these names are being brought up because they're the leading men of Iceland.
Doesn't make them good men.
Which suggests that I've been choosing well. Second,
you know
that you'd have taken Snorri and Skafti in a second if I hadn't. And I've got that on record in those episodes.
Nah, you've got no proof of that.
I do!
Whereas I note that Snorri's also going to bear the brunt of Skarpheðin's insult.
Well, I mean, so does everybody else. But to be brief, Snorri says he's got too much on his plate already, and he won't join the Njalsson side in the case. But he also promises not to help Flosi either.
So he's a conscientious objector, if you will.
He's neutral.
Yes.
At least right now he is. The author at this point calls Snorri the wisest of the men in Iceland who could not foretell the future. He was good to his friends, but fierce to his enemies.
Yes, we've heard that before about him.
Yes, and as we saw in Eyrbyggja Saga, he's a cagey guy.
Yeah.
It's safe to assume he's up to something. But Snorri plays a long game, and so we won't know what he's up to for a while.
Yeah, and to be fair, I still love you, Snorri Goði.
Yeah.
Come over to my side, please.
Never.
Nah. In the meantime, it's his turn to exchange abuse with Skarpheðin, so we have to cover that.
Right, which isn't such a great plan. Snorri's promised to stay out of things. Why would Skarpheðin want to annoy him?
Again, Skarpheðin's under a lot of strain here, and he's not shy about letting off a little steam at anyone who gives him an excuse. And since Snorri doesn't help, and Snorri actually calls him a pale-looking individual with a toothy sneer, he also, Snorri predicts that he has only a short time left to live. So even though he doesn't have foresight, he has a good sense of how this is going to play out.
It's a good thing Snorri can't foretell the future then.
True enough.
He has no idea.
Skarpheðin's still annoyed, and he says, "You need to be avenging your father, rather than predicting my fate."
Yeah. Now, for most Saga figures, that would be a deadly insult.
Yeah, it would. Now, listeners might remember this from way back in Gisli's Saga, which we've already covered. Snorri's father was killed before Snorri was born. The killer was Snorri's uncle, Gisli Snorrison, and although Gisli did eventually die for the killing, Snorri never took a hand in the revenge, and he's been hearing about it ever since.
Right, but Snorri's an unusual man. He plays things close to the vest, and he only says, "Many have said that already, and I'm not troubled by such words."
I love it. That's a good answer.
He's an interesting dude. He's just not motivated by the same sorts of things that other men of his time obsess over.
That's true. Some, and not me necessarily, but I would say some would call him a little bit cowardly. He tends not to get involved in the action himself.
No, I think,
and this is something that would require him to get actually involved.
No, I think what that shows is a caginess and a craftiness, right? He's not averse to confrontation when it's necessary, but he chooses his time and place. He doesn't get himself involved in somebody else's timetable for when violence needs to happen.
That's true, but in this case, this is violence that should happen, and we shouldn't do this. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, no, this is it's not.
Yeah, and we definitely haven't seen the last of him in this saga. But rather than dwell on Snorri Goði, let's go on to the next booth.
Right, the next 3 booths, in fact. Hoff the Wealthy, Guðmund the Powerful, and Thorkel Bully. The visit to Hoff goes badly. Hoff wants no part of the Njalssons, and Skarpheðin responds by calling Hoff a milksop and bringing up the time Hoff's sister was kidnapped by raiders.
Yeah, there's no hope. No help there.
No. Guðmund the Powerful is only a little better. Like Snorri, he promises not to get involved on either side, although he leaves the door open to further conversation. But like everyone else, he comments on Skarpheðin's appearance, and Skarpheðin responds by saying, "We're both men of poor luck, it's true, but Thorkel Bully and Thor Helgason have been spreading slander about you, and you deserve blame for that." After that, the Njalssons show themselves the door.
Well, that's awkward.
Yeah, it is.
You know who they visit next, though?
Yes.
Thorkel Bully himself, the guy who they just said was slandering Guðmund.
Right. Now, you have to assume that they knew they couldn't get support from both of these guys.
Well, maybe not. But maybe that isn't Osgrim's purpose in visiting this booth. But I suspect that Osgrim's just gotten exasperated with Skarpheðin at this point. And he figures that if he's going to be obnoxious to everyone they visit, they might as well visit someone who deserves it. So, John, would it interest you if I told you that Thorkel Bully's patronymic is Thorgerson?
Thorgerson.
Yeah.
Yes. I know what you're getting at. This is the son of Thorkel the Goði, the law speaker who decided for the conversion of Iceland a few years ago.
Yes, he is. That's why we study genealogies,
That's
isn't it?
right.
So Thorkel's a very different man than his father, but it's always worth pointing out that these complicated family threads are being woven throughout the saga, and they bear fruit if you pay attention to them.
Right. So, what kind of a man is he? The name Thorkel Bully doesn't inspire confidence.
It shouldn't. He's not an awful man, but he's a difficult guy with a reputation as a fighter. He's pretty confident in himself, and he likes to brag that there's no man in Iceland who would refuse single combat with him.
Well, that makes sense. In fact, his nickname can be translated as braggart or foul speech instead of bully.
No, you're champing at the bit to get to those nicknames, aren't you?
I'm misjudging the sagas. Remember we used to do that?
Remember we used to have a show where we read multiple sagas?
We read sagas and then talked about them and judged them.
Oh,
I vaguely remember this.
Oh, good times. I remember those. Those are the halcyon days. Oh, well, we'll get back there someday. Anyway, Thorkel Bully is actually very, very interesting. Thorkel's reputation isn't just a matter of bragging. He's a widely traveled Viking and a monster slayer.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got an impressive resume, almost Beowulfian. He's killed a berserk in Sweden, a strange type of beast in Finland, and a flying dragon in Estonia. He's very impressive.
Okay, hang on. You can't just blow past all those. A dragon? A strange beast? What is all this?
Well, that's the reputation. I mean, he's an impressive guy. On that resume alone, I would consider taking him as Thingman over Gunnar. Right?
Oh.
Come on now.
Feel free. You heard it here, folks.
Yeah, and Thorkel's proud of these things. He likes to advertise his deeds. So he has murals carved of his battles and displayed in his home.
Like I said, braggart. Okay, so we've seen dragon fights before in Bjorn the Hitterdal Champion saga and in Ragnar saga, actually. But this other thing is a really rare accomplishment. The strange beast you mentioned is actually a Fingalken in the Old Norse.
Right, and a cook translates it as half man, half beast, which is kind of vague.
Yeah, which is okay. It gets the job done without belaboring the point.
Nah, but John, this is Saga Thing, and we love belaboring points, don't we?
That's our bread and butter.
Okay, so what exactly is a Fingalken? I have a feeling that you've got a sense of this, that you've looked into it.
Yeah, I did.
I knew
in Cook's footnote, he calls it a centaur-like creature.
Centaur?
Yeah, but I know from
like
other
that.
sources that Fingalken sometimes fight with a sword held in their claws. So this ain't a horse. Or a man horse, for that matter.
Yeah, man horse. Yeah, I don't know where you looked up Fingalken. What are your sources? Where are you getting this information? I've never heard of this thing.
Well, I looked the term up in the usual dictionaries, but I also did a little bit of Google Foo. And the Fingalken actually was the monster of the month on the Reykjavik Grapevine website last month. We should link to that, actually. It gives a lot of information about them.
All right, I can do that. All right, now tell me, what kind of half beast, half man are we talking about?
Well, it's not clear what the animal half is exactly, or how much of the man and animal parts are involved. One tradition says the Fingalken were the offspring of a tomcat and a vixen, a female fox.
Are you serious?
Yes, absolutely.
It's not exactly threatening.
Well, you know, although the fact that those two things could even have a child is kind of terrifying. But other stories make them sound more like a basilisk with a serpent's body.
Is that kind of like that image from Olaf Tryggvason's saga?
I suppose. But other stories make them sound more like a basilisk with a serpent's body. And there's also a tradition that says that the Fingalken hatched from rooster eggs.
Rooster eggs, you say?
Uh-huh.
Roosters laying eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah, roosters don't lay eggs usually.
Well, that's why they're so scary.
Okay.
Anyway, some people do translate it as centaur, and others prefer the word to be sphinx. It's hard to say exactly what the thing is, though.
Okay, so either way, the upshot is that it's a tough monster to kill, and Thorkel's killed one. It makes him a cool guy.
And he likes to brag about it. Right, so, okay. Asgrim and the Njalssons visit Thorkel's booth, but before they go in, Asgrim says, "It would mean a lot if we could have Thorkel's help, but we must watch our step, for he is headstrong and arrogant. I must ask you, Skarpheðin, not to take part in the conversation." And in response, Skarpheðin just grins at him.
That's like a teacher. All right. And sure enough, when Thorkel refuses their initial request for help, Skarpheðin digs in hard.
Yes, he does.
First, he insults Thorkel over a fight Thorkel and his father Thorgeir once had. But then he goes for broke. He says, You don't often take part in lawsuits. You're probably handier at dairy work on your little farm in Oxera. You really ought to pick from your teeth the pieces of the mare's ass you ate before riding to the thing. Your shepherd was shocked that you do such a filthy thing. I mean, honestly, notable witticism?
Yeah.
All wrapped up right there, isn't it? What can you even say in a moment like that?
I don't know, but presumably you say it while covering your teeth with your hand. Thorkel is predictably enraged, leaps to his feet, and brandishes his sword. "Well, I got this sword in Sweden, where I killed a mighty champion for it, and I've killed many others with it too. I'll run you through with it too, and that's what you'll get for your foul speech."
He's almost Yosemite Sam-esque.
I think that's appropriate.
Yeah, he's like the
kind of giant Yosemite Sam.
Oh, I tell you. Ooh. And so Skarpheðin stands there with his axe, and then he just grins and says, "I had this axe in my hand when I leapt across the Markafjord River and killed Thrain Sigfusson. 8 men were standing around, and they didn't manage to catch me." And then he rushes at Thorkel. "You've got 2 choices, Thorkel Bully." Oh, he's turned into Batman now. "Sheath your sword." Sheath your sword and sit down, or I'll smash this axe into your head and split you down to the shoulders.
Ugh. And Thorkel immediately Prince Humperdinck's. He drops his sword and falls into his chair.
What a great image. Well done. And also, everyone needs to drink now. What's brilliant about that? We both read that in the same way. I see exactly that. He just kind of folds his little skirt around him and sits down. And I think that all of this was set up by Asgrim.
Yeah, I think so. Asgrim got a kind of non-committal response from Guðmund the Powerful. And so the very next thing he does is march the group over to Guðmund's worst enemy's booth and order Skarpheðin to behave himself and keep his mouth shut. Anyone who knows Skarpheðin knows this is basically insisting that he insult the host.
And there's another hint that Asgrim isn't too unhappy about Thorkel's humiliation. As the group's on their way back to their own booth, worn out from the begging, as Skarpheðin puts it, Asgrim says to him, "You've been difficult all day, but I think your treatment of Thorkel was just what he deserved."
And it works, by the way. When Guðmund the Powerful hears about what happened to Thorkel Bully, he can barely contain his delight.
Yes.
He tells his brother, Einar Thvera, to go support the Njalssons at once. And if they need more help, I'll provide it myself.
And isn't that the brilliance of the sagas?
Yeah.
They don't explain why they're doing this or that. They just say, this is what happened and this is what happened after.
Right.
And you have to piece together.
Exactly.
Why.
But you can picture this guy just jumping around in his booth, punching the air, going, woohoo!
Right? But what a great study of human behavior and of human nature without kind of being really overt about the whole thing.
And it's all sort of under the table. You have to sort of piece all this together.
It's that's why it's fun. It's fun to read this stuff. So that's it, right?
That's it. For now. The Njalssons get support from Guðmund the Powerful and Gizur the White. They get a promise of neutrality from Snorri Goði and no help at all from the rest. But with the support they already had, they're not in a terrible position. The two sides aren't quite equal heading into the lawsuit, but it's close.
All right. Now that everything's set up, let's sue somebody.
Part 34. A Knife's Edge. So the next day, Asgrim meets with his chief supporters. His son Thorhall, Einar Thvera, Gizur the White, Morð Valgardsson, and Hjalti Skeggisson. It's quite a brain trust. The meeting is to discuss the Njalssons' defense in the case over Hoskild's killing.
See, you snuck it in there like I wouldn't notice, but you said Morð Valgardsson.
That's right. Essentially, that's what the meeting's about. Asgrim tells the others about the subterfuge Morð's pulled by starting the case improperly, and everyone realizes the implication at once.
Now, this is important, so I want to make sure that no one's confused. Actually, I want to make sure we're not confused. Remember that Morð took part in the killing of Hoskuld.
Yes.
And then he pretended that he hadn't been there and actually started the case against the Njalssons for the killing.
Yes.
And then he turned the case over to the Sigfusons, who then turned it over to Flosi.
Yes.
And now he's back with the Njalsson supporters and helping to build the defense for the Njalssons.
Yes.
Against the case that he started. And so I don't even know if people are following this. And the defense is that the suit's invalid because it was started by one of Hoskuld's killers.
That's all correct, yes.
So Morð is either an evil genius or he's the sneakiest weasel in all of Iceland. Or both.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure that's an either-or situation.
Yeah.
William Penchak calls Morð a master of the law, but only for personal advantage and evil schemes.
Well, hold on now. Njal is also a master of the law and only for personal advantage. And
not only.
And
not
schemes.
Only. How many times have we seen Njal offer advice to others? But certainly, no, your point is right. He's a master of the law who occasionally uses it for personal advantage. Mm-hmm. But that's all Morð does with it. In essence, Morth's like the dark side version of Njal.
No, that's fair.
Right? Njal manipulates the law sometimes, but ultimately he believes in the power of law to achieve an objective good. For Morð, the law is a game played with loaded dice.
Interesting. Well, I think there are arguments that could be made against that reading of Njal, but that's for another time or place. It's a pretty thin moral distinction either way. Both men are ultimately using the law to win cases, and their superior knowledge of the law gives them an advantage over others.
Well, it is thin. That's the point, right? I mean, it's so easy for the entire edifice of law and justice to crumble. In the second half of this saga, we can really track the decline of the ideals of the law.
So then the difference is that Njal respects the law even while he abuses it, whereas Morð uses it without concern for the ideals that give it purpose.
Yeah, that's about right.
I think so.
And yeah. And yeah, this is convoluted. I mean, deliberately so. Right? That's the point of the plan, is that nobody can track him through all this. Mm-hmm. But it is an audacious plan. And Hjalti Skeggisson is especially excited about it. He has to be restrained from running to announce the situation at once to everyone at the Althing.
So this is the same Hjalti Skeggisson who insulted the gods Odin and Freya. We mentioned that before, right?
Yeah.
So he's got a habit of leaping before he looks, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's energetic, but he's not necessarily the sharpest hook in the tackle box. Fortunately, there's a wiser head in the group. Thorhall Asgrimsson, the guy who's been studying law with Njal for years, now speaks up and warns the other men to keep the defense quiet so that Flosie's band can't move to fix their mistake before the trial.
Now, this is the first time we see Thorhall actually in action, and it's kind of important. He's been learning from Njal for a long time now, and now he knows all the loopholes and can play the courtroom game better than other men.
Well, better than Hjalti, anyway.
Yeah.
Everyone agrees to keep quiet until the trial, and they all go their ways. And I assume someone is keeping an eye on Hjalti to make sure he doesn't go recite a poem about their plan.
Well, meanwhile, Flosi and the Sigfusson set their case and name the defendants. And up to the day of court, there's really no contact at all between the groups.
Right. Now, at the trial, both sides line up their most impressive supporters, which is essentially what we've been working out for the last half hour or so.
Half hour? A little bit longer than that. No, we could have actually saved time by skipping to this part if we wanted to.
Well, and Miss Skarpheðin sneering at some of the greatest men of Iceland? Never.
No, and I'm glad we didn't, because that's really fun stuff. How, half our listeners wouldn't even know about Thorkel Bully if we jumped ahead.
There you go.
Yeah. So
unless they listen to Rekdala Saga.
That's right. Well, he's just pops in. So both sides are lined up now. And once Flosi names the panel of jurors, he's committed to the suit. And Thorhall's able to spring Morð's trap.
Right.
He immediately explains that Morð was responsible for some of the wounds on Höskild's body, and that because of that, any suit begun by him is obviously invalid.
And now before anyone can react, Njal leaps up and says, I ask Hall of Sitha and Flosi and all the Sigfussons as well as our men not to leave, but to hear my words. This case is at an impasse, which was to be expected since it had evil roots. I want you to know that I loved Höskild more than my own sons, and when I heard that he had been slain, I felt that the sweetest light of my eyes had been put out, and I would rather have lost all my sons to have him live.
Wow. I mean, that's got to make Skarpheðin, Grim, and Helgi feel pretty good about themselves. What a father.
Yeah. Njal is laying it on a bit thick.
Yeah, that's actually a famous line, that sweetest light of my eyes. Scholar Andrew Hamer uses this as a jumping off point for discussing the use of metaphor in Njal Saga.
Well, it's a pretty well-traveled image. Versions of that metaphor appear in several medieval texts. I think it ultimately derives from the Vulgate, right?
Well, you should probably explain that the Vulgate is a Latin version of the Bible. We have listeners who aren't medievalists out there.
Why would I explain that? You just did it for me.
So Hamer's point is that this is part of a set of vision-based stories and metaphors in the saga, and that the author's using it deliberately.
Well, deliberate or not, it gets everyone's attention. And aside from hurting his son's feelings, Njal is trying to set up a negotiation here. Right? He proposes that both sides should appoint representatives to a council of men that can hammer out a settlement. Everyone except Flosi's on board, but Flosi holds out. Until his father-in-law, Hall of Sitha, asks him to yield.
See, there's Hall again. He keeps turning up in this saga at important moments. We'll talk about him in a couple episodes, but for now, he's a voice of reason, and so the two sides agree to a council. Flosi's nominees are led by Hall, but Njal's aren't really led by one person. They actually include Asgrim and Hjalti, but also Gizur the White, Guðmund the Powerful, Einar of Fera, and Snorri Goði.
And that's Njal's genius.
Why? Why do you say that?
Because they're a committee. They're a combination of partisans who support Njal, like Asgrim and Hjalti, men who are on his side for reasons of obligation like Gizur, and then fence-sitters like Guðmund and Snorri, who've been lukewarm in their support.
But partisans are what's needed here. We need them.
Well, sure, but this council is going to have to choose a mouthpiece, or a speaker. And the clear compromise choices are all men Njal nominated.
See, okay. So when the council has to make proposals or deliberate on the case, Njal's men are going to do most of the talking. And we saw back in Bondamana Saga, for example, that the person who speaks the judgment has a lot of power over the outcome.
Bondamana Saga.
Oh, yes.
So much fun to say.
Bondamana Saga.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what happens. The council begins their deliberations by asking Snorri Goði to lead things, because of course he's the greatest man there. And when he comes up with a plan to value Hoskuld at triple compensation, the first two men to speak in support of it are Guðmund and Gizur.
So Njal's contingent is controlling the conversation, which is really important. And we should say that triple compensation is a very steep price.
Yes.
The point, as Snorri says, is to set a fine so huge that no man in Iceland will ever have been more costly than Hoskuld.
Right. This is an honor move.
Yeah, and for everyone involved, it is. It will make Flosi look good to be getting. It will make Flosi look good to get such a huge settlement. It'll make Njal look magnanimous to pay out such a huge penalty, and Snorri will look like a genius for resolving a case without bloodshed.
Right. Preben Mjølnrock Sorensen cites this case as an example of the difficulty of legal proceedings. Right? The crucial problem, he says, is to get peace restored in such a way that nobody loses standing or social status. And there's still one problem, which is that triple compensation really is a huge figure. Right? It's 600 ounces of silver, which is more than any one man has on hand.
And Snorri adds the stipulation that it has to be paid right away, right there at the Althing. So he's not really going easy on Njal, even though he's fighting to keep the Njalssons from being outlawed.
Well, or at least he doesn't want to be seen as going easy on Njal.
Oh, that's fair, yes. Gizur objects that Snorri's idea can't work as a settlement because there's no way that Njal can pay that much on the spot. Guðmund then chimes in that the solution must be that they, the Council of 12, will chip in to pay half of the fine.
Right, now note that these are all Njal supporters speaking.
Yes.
Now this means that each of the counselors will win their honor for their statesmanlike generosity. Snorri's really, really good at this kind of thing. And as always, he comes out looking great.
Is it suspicious that all three of the men coming up with this solution are from Njal's side?
Well, it's certainly interesting that that's the case. Right, but no collusion is suggested. I think what we're seeing is that Snorri comes up with a solution that benefits Njal's family while increasing everyone's honor, and the others are quick to support the best deal they're likely to get. Hall of Sitha agrees on behalf of the Flosi contingent, and the settlement is made and announced.
Now, when the settlement is announced, Njal thanks Hall and the others for the settlement, but Skarpheðin just stands back with that same faded, cynical grin on his face. And when the time comes for everyone to collect the payment together, Njal begs his sons, especially Skarpheðin, not to interfere with the process. There's
People
hope
keep
here.
begging Skarpheðin not to say things. It never works. Right? Skarpheðin just strokes his forehead and grins again. Now, we know Skarpheðin thinks he's doomed at this point, but it's not clear to me what he's up to.
Well, if he is fated, he's acting like he knows it. But we already said that he doesn't have the gift of foresight. He's just touched by fate in some different way. But for the moment, he keeps quiet.
And the forehead stroking?
Maybe he has got a headache or something like that. Anyway, Njal wants to make... I think honestly, I think the stroking of the forehead indicates a kind of a knowing discomfort, if that makes any sense to you. Yeah. Anyway, so Njal wants to make this a smooth settlement. So he adds in his own contribution. A silk robe and a pair of boots. And these are meant to be a gift to Flosi directly.
And so as the two sides reconvene to exchange the payment, everything seems poised for a peaceful resolution. Not amicable, maybe, but peaceful.
Yeah, so what could possibly go wrong?
Part 35. A Broken Peace. So I think the best thing to do here is to explain what happens briefly and then talk about it, because this is a very short moment in the saga, but it's a nexus for a lot of different stuff.
Okay. Well, the short version is that the settlement collapses when Flosi takes offense at the robe that Njal added to the pile of money. So apparently he sees it as effeminate. So he then insults Njal by reviving the old beardless insult, suggesting that Njal's ambiguous sexual identity explains such a robe. Skarpheðin then retaliates by throwing a pair of black pants at Flosi and calling him a troll's wife. So rather than, things really kind of escalate quickly, don't they?
It gets ugly in a hurry.
Rather than violate the peace of the all thing, the two sides then both retreat to their booths with the settlement all in tatters. Everything's ruined. They leave all the money on the ground, and two of the council take that money to save it for later. And that's it. Good night, everyone. We're going to see you next week.
No. That's not quite it. We still have to explain what's going on.
All right. Well, explain. I thought I did a decent job.
All right. So as I see it, there are three problems we need to resolve in what you just described.
Oh, so I get it. I just summarize. Now you want to discuss it. Oh, just like
yes.
It's
I want
like
to have a conversation.
A freshman writing class.
There you
Stop
go.
Just summarizing, people.
That's right.
Well, I think the obvious problem, at least the first one we should talk about, is why Flosi thinks that the robe is an offense. And not just an offense, but one serious enough to derail the settlement over.
And the second problem is related to the first. Is it offensive? Right? Is Njal deliberately trying to provoke Flosi and the Sigfusons?
Then there's also the matter of what happens to the settlement money. It's a lot of money.
Oh, that's true. I hadn't been thinking about that. So that means there are four issues to resolve, because I also want to talk about the troll wife insult.
Everyone loves a good troll insult.
They do indeed. But let's start with the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat and Flosi's decision to interpret it as an insult.
Okay, but even from just the way you said that, I can tell that you're not on Flosi's side in this. Is Flosi choosing to be offended? In other words, is he derailing the peace process deliberately?
A lot of people think he is, and there's some evidence for that. The Norse word here is silkeslather, which translates as silk garment. Right? A cloak, most likely, but can also be rendered as gown or shirt. It's pretty clearly a fancy piece of clothing, in other words, but there's no particular reason to assume it's effeminate, which is the nature of the offense in Flosi's opinion.
True. The same word is used to describe a cloak given as a gift to Egil Skallagrimsson, and Egil takes it as a flattering gift.
Right. There's actually even a similar exchange in this saga. Right? Way back in the early chapters, we saw Hallgrim's uncle Hrut add a beautiful cloak to the settlement payment for her first husband's death. In that case, too, it's understood by everyone involved that this is simply a lovely gesture. It's an extra fillip of generosity that cements an amicable resolution to a matter of honor.
Which suggests that this is a stink eye of the beholder thing, right? If that's a phrase I can use. If Flosi deliberately misunderstands the gift in order to have an excuse to disrupt a settlement that he actually didn't want in the first place.
Well, remember, he has to be talked into that settlement by Hall of Sida, his father-in-law. Right? This gets him out of the settlement without appearing to disregard his father-in-law's counsel.
But that brings us to the second question. Why does Njal add this silkeslather to the pile of silver? I mean, is this an honest and generous gift, or is Njal trying to serve a future that he already sees as inevitable and kind of hasten towards it? And there's a related question here. When Flosi asks who added the gift, why does Njal say nothing?
Well, I mean, those are among the great unanswered questions of this saga. Right? One of the things that's happening during the course of our saga is that a lot of time has been passing. Njal's gone from a relatively young man to a man with adult grandchildren over the course of the saga.
Right. Amundi the Blind is Njal's grandson. And at least 2 generations have grown up since we first saw Njal and Gunnar together.
Right. Now, in that time, Njal's lost friends, he's lost sons, he's lost foster sons, he's manipulated the law and seen it fail to prevent violence time and time again. He's an old man who's now sure that the fate he's been dreading for so long is coming to pass. Yeah.
And he also hoped that Christianity might resolve some of the issues of the island, but clearly that's not coming true either.
Absolutely.
And the fate that he's dreading is the death of his entire family.
Yeah.
So, and he's had multiple forebodings of that. It's coming as far as he thinks.
We've seen before that Njal often knows the things he or others must do to bring about a possible future. So it's possible that he's deliberately sabotaging the settlement out of resignation. But that's far from certain, and in fact, I actually don't buy it. I think it's much more likely, and you can find scholars on either side of this, but I think it's much more likely that he's still trying to bring about the best possible future, and that the gift is part of that. But Flosi reacts badly.
Well, he reacts really badly. I mean, it does feel a little over the top the way he responds, like he's performing being offended rather than actually being offended.
Yes, exactly. No, exactly. And when he does that, Njal realizes that the game is up, and there's no escaping fate now.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no reason to say anything, since anything he says will only hasten the inevitable outcome. What do you think?
I agree with that entirely. I see Flosi as he was put in a position by his oaths that he is going to seek a violent revenge, and this is his way to pursue that. And Njal is quietly resigned at this point to that fate.
But whether Njal is provoking his fate or trying to create a lasting peace, Flosi's response is unexpected. He responds by reviving the old beardless insult against Njal. This is the third time we've seen Njal's lack of facial hair weaponized against him and his family.
Right. Now, I know we've talked about this on previous occasions, about the implications of beardlessness. Njal's smooth face makes him abnormal in a culture that equates facial hair with male sexual maturity.
Exactly. Now, I've read other ideas about the significance of Njal's face, but they're not generally convincing.
Well, such as, if you're going to say such a thing.
Well, Robert Ferguson argues, and this is a quote, "The reference is to the practice introduced by Christian missionaries and followed by the convert Njal of going clean-shaven."
Wait a minute.
Yeah. So, in other words, what he's saying is that Njal is bare-cheeked because he shaves because Christians taught him to do that when he converted.
Yeah, that sounds nice, but that insult has been used against Njal throughout the whole saga, and he only converted a few chapters ago.
As I said, I'm not convinced. I mean, this is
for good reason.
Well, and we do see things in the sagas where somebody gets a nickname before the thing that causes them to have that nickname, like somebody called Woodleg before they had their leg chopped off. That's not this case, right? Njal's been beardless his whole life. It's a congenital condition. When we're first introduced to him, we're told there's one thing about him: no beard grew upon him. It's been a feature about descriptions about him since long before the conversion. But the important point in the text right now, this is the most public declaration yet that smooth face indicates a lack of manhood. And Flosi's not pulling any punches with it. He says, "There are many who can't tell by looking at him whether he's a man or a woman."
Now, that's been building over the course of the saga. I mean, each time the insult comes up, it's heard by more people and with higher stakes in the game of honor. And the implicit characterization of Njal as androgynous, especially with his wife being also androgynous, are now being stated flat out.
Yeah, and this time it's at the all thing.
Yeah.
And with all the most important chieftains of Iceland present. It's impossible to get more public than this. It's also the first time anyone has pushed it this far. This is the first time Njal's face has been insulted to his face. If we're thinking in terms of the game of honor, as you said, this has suddenly gotten very serious.
Oh, yeah.
And it demands an equally strong response.
Which brings us to Skarpheðin's retaliation and the thing you wanted to talk about, the troll wife insult.
Yeah, this is we probably need to read this out. Do you want to be Flosi or Skarpheðin?
Well, I've been doing Skarpheðin all episodes, so I'll do him with probably a different voice. Who knows?
Of course you will. All right. Pick up after Flosi said that Njal might be a man or a woman.
All right. So Skarpheðin says, "That's a wicked thing to do, making slurs about him in his old age, and no man worthy of the name has ever done this before. You can tell that he's a man because he's had sons with his wife, and few of our kinsmen have ever been buried uncompensated without our taking vengeance for them." And then Skarpheðin throws those black pair of pants at Flosi, and he says, "You need this more than a robe."
"And why do I need them more?"
"Because if you are the sweetheart of the troll of Svinafell, as is widely reported, he uses you as a woman every ninth night."
Okay. There's a lot to deal with there, and we can't hope to cover all of it.
Well, for starters, there's the response to the specific insinuation that Njal cannot be a father if he's not a man.
Yeah, I think we talked about the importance of that issue. Not just for Njal, but for his entire family. This is a culture that cares about bloodlines and genealogies. The implication that the Njalssons are actually the sons of their mother's unknown lover threatens to disrupt their entire family story.
Yeah, there's also the thread in Skarpheðin's reference to their relatives not going uncompensated for wrongs done to them. It's more assertion about the family bonds that Flósi's insult puts under attack, but it's also a boast about the men Skarpheðin's already killed over matters of honor, including Thrain Sigvason, Halskald Thrainson, and the killers of Gunnar Hamundarson.
Right, and that line, he's had sons with his wife, is a subtle thread as well. Right, remember, we heard a similar line from Helgi Vestensson in Gisli Saga right after he and his brother had killed Thorkel Surson. Right, one way you can tell a man has sons, in other words, is the swiftness of the vengeance visited upon you when you wrong their father.
Ah, very nice. Yeah, and it's a hell of an insult. And the part about the troll, at least, is fairly popular. I mean, accusations of sexual relations with the troll show up a few times in the sagas. There are similar insults in Ref the Sly saga, which I can't wait to get to. We see it in Thorstein's Sidu Halsson saga and in Aelhud saga. Cook and Sorensen both cover this motif pretty well.
Right. And, of course, by turning the sexual insult back on Flósi, Skarpheðin also covers up this idea that no one's ever dared to insult Njal before for his beardlessness, which at best is disingenuous because, of course, Skarpheðin has personally taken revenge for previous versions of this insult.
Yeah.
But obviously we're dealing with a literary tradition that celebrates heteronormative masculinity, right? So the reference to taking a woman's part in a sex act is a further insult. And the monstrous nature of the sex partner is another facet.
Yes, and actually the structure of the insult is a classic form, so much so that it's covered in Norwegian law of the time. It's an outlawable offense if a man declares, and this is a quote from the law codes, it's an outlawable offense if a man declares that another man is a woman every 9th night, or says he has borne a child, or calls him a monster.
Right. Skarpheðin's insult covers 2 of those 3. So it's pretty clearly a deliberate reference to that tradition by the author.
Yeah, and here's a question. What do black pants have to do with being a troll's woman, exactly?
I have no idea. It's a little obscure. The most likely answer is that Skarpheðin's implying that Flósi doesn't wear men's pants during his Svinafell assignations. But it's also possible that the pants are meant to be women's trousers or leggings.
Well, either way, where's Skarpheðin getting them from? I mean, he's just come to the all thing, and he's got a pair of spare pants in his back pocket.
It's a good idea to carry spare pants. You never know when you're going to get someone else's blood on your clothes.
That's good advice, folks.
You'd said you wanted to talk about the money that gets left behind from the failed settlement.
Well, I mean, I'm still interested in these pants and what they imply. But I guess we need to move forward. This episode's got to end eventually. Okay, there's not a ton to say about it. After Flósi shoved the money away and stormed off, the council and their supporters are left standing around a heap of silver, and that silver belongs to all of them.
Well, all of them and the Njalssons.
Yes, it does, but they've gone off too. So none of the actual litigants in the case are left, and none of the counselors actually want to take their money back.
Well, that's not entirely true. They have a brief conversation about it. But then Guðmund the Powerful says, I don't choose to bring shame on myself by taking back what has been given. Now, at that point, it'd be hard for anyone else to reach a hand out for their portion of the cash.
True, but they also can't leave the money sitting there. So Snorri Goði tells Gizur and Hjalti to each take half of it and hold it until next year's Althing. He says, I've got a sense it won't be long until it's needed.
See, and we said he couldn't foretell the future.
Well, I don't think you need to be a fortune teller to know there's going to be violence, and Snorri Goði's a good reader of people
right.
and situations.
Right. He can see what's going on.
Oh, yeah.
As Sorensen writes, this exchange between Flósi and Skarpheðin marks the final breakup of peace. This is the turning point at which the judicial negotiations are swept overboard and armed conflict supervenes. So Snorri's prediction is a recognition of exactly that. Things can no longer be settled without violence, so the silver will be needed later, if it's not needed now, to settle, obviously, the deaths of other men. Right. Now, on the face of it, this is a really ambiguous thing. Are we supposed to be focused on the grim inevitability of violence and death? Or is this sort of pocketing away of the money, is this an assertion that the law will still be there to reconcile the survivors once the bloodlust has run its course?
Or is all of this an emphasis on the failure of law in general?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I don't see a lot of hopefulness in this particular moment either way.
Yeah. No, I suppose I don't either. Although Skarpheðin at least seems pretty happy that the lawsuit stuff is over.
Oh yeah, well he likes...
Yeah. I mean, he's always been one to prefer violence to legal solutions. So as the family heads back to their booth, Skarpheðin says to Njal, well, now they can't ever prosecute us according to the law. He's really pleased by what's happened.
Or maybe he at least accepts it.
Mm-hmm.
But Njal responds, then what comes next will be worse for everyone.
And I think that pretty much encapsulates the competing father and son worldviews right there.
Yes. I mean, Skarpheðin's rushing headlong toward this fate, and Njal's been doing everything he can to avoid it.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's also a nice echo of Njal's earlier pronouncement that lawlessness will be the ruin of Iceland.
Yeah, and this is a great example of it. Unfortunately, we won't get to the ruin of Iceland just yet, because we're at the end of this very long episode. Both parties ride away from the All Thing, but before they go, Flosi and his supporters all swear an oath to support one another in their pursuit of revenge against the Njalssons.
You're right. And everyone understands that Flosi is now planning to lead an assault against Njal's family.
Yes.
And that assault will lead to one of the most famous massacres in all the sagas.
Massacre's a strong word, but that's all for next time. For now, we're going to have to leave it there, with Njal and his family awaiting their fate, with Flosi and his men committed to the destruction of Njal's family, and with the entire island holding its collective breath.
Yeah, sorry about that. I guess we're doing a cliffhanger.
Not really. I think everyone knows exactly what's going to happen, but, we'll get there eventually. In the meantime, please let us know what you think about the story so far, what you'd like us to cover that we haven't gotten to, and what we've done to offend you, if we have. You can reach us through Twitter, where we are Saga Thing Pod, or on Facebook, where we are Saga Thing Podcast. The blog site that you can visit and leave comments on as well is sagathingpodcast.wordpress.com.
Or you can attach a short note to a St. Bernard's collar, add a small cartoonish barrel of whiskey, and send the dog to rescue us. If you don't hear back, send another dog with more whiskey.
I wasn't aware that we were in the need of rescuing, but I will accept the barrels of whiskey. So that's it for now. Thanks for listening, everyone. We will be back soon with another episode of the Endless Njal Saga.
Bye for now.
Well, I don't know about you, but I keep all of my nefarious plans in a little black book. Plan book. A black plan book.
What the hell is that? Blank plan book.
I don't know.